The council chamber hummed with the quiet, unassuming arrogance of the galaxy's most advanced species. Representatives from dozens of civilizations sat in a semicircle, their glowing, pulsating forms casting multicolored shadows on the floor. At the center of the room floated a holographic image of Earth's first human crew standing proudly in front of their new ship, the Iron Sparrow. "Well, there it is," grumbled Vorik, a reptilian delegate whose scaled frills rippled with disdain. "Humans, the youngest, least advanced species in this coalition, handed one of our relics." "Appropriate," the other representatives murmured in agreement. The Iron Sparrow was an antique, a patched-up scout vessel decommissioned centuries ago. It was a symbolic gesture, of course. The humans didn't deserve anything better. They had only just scraped their way into the coalition, mostly due to their planet's strategic position near uncharted space. "The humans should be grateful," hissed Xyler, a crystalline being whose voice resonated in harmonic tones. "This ship is more than adequate for their primitive sensibilities." Across the galaxy, on a barren station orbiting Saturn, the human crew stood in stunned silence. Captain Alyssa Tran scanned the ship, her lips tightening into a thin line. The Iron Sparrow looked like it had been built out of scrap and forgotten. Rust streaked its hull, the weapon systems were laughably outdated, and its power core was barely functional. Lieutenant Malik, her chief engineer, let out a low whistle. "Captain, I think this thing might fall apart if someone sneezes too hard." Tran crossed her arms. "We're not here to complain. They want us to fail. Let's prove them wrong." The crew exchanged glances. There was an unspoken understanding that they weren't just representing Earth, they were proving humanity's worth to the galaxy. As they boarded the Iron Sparrow, the scope of the challenge became painfully clear. The ship's navigation system was riddled with errors. The artificial intelligence on board, an archaic model named Scion, spoke in glitchy, distorted tones. "Welcome to Iron SPSP Sparrow," it stuttered, its voice dripping with static. Malik groaned. "This thing's barely a ship. It's a coffin with engines." Tran ignored the comment, her eyes scanning the dimly lit interior. "We'll make it work." In the observation chamber of the Alien Council, Vorik observed the humans with amusement. "They seem optimistic." "How quaint." "They don't understand their limits," Xyler replied, crystalline tones ringing with certainty. "They'll break before the ship does." Back on the Iron Sparrow, Tran called her crew together. "This ship might be falling apart, but so what? Earth didn't make it to this point by having the best tools. We survived by being resourceful. So let's strip this thing down, figure out what works, and fix what doesn't." The words landed heavily. The crew nodded, determination igniting in their eyes. The aliens watched, bemused, as the humans set to work. In their minds, the humans' efforts were futile, a last-ditch attempt to salvage pride. None of them realized that humanity's greatest strength wasn't its technology or biology. It was its unrelenting refusal to give up. The Iron Sparrow hurtled toward the anomaly, its battered hull groaning under the strain. The mission was supposed to be simple: rescue a stranded coalition vessel trapped in a collapsing spatial rift. But as the humans approached, it became clear why no other coalition ship had attempted it. The rift churned with chaotic bursts of energy, its fluctuating gravity pulling debris into an endless spiral. "Scion, analysis," Tran commanded, her voice calm but firm. "Spatial distortion exceeds known parameters. Standard protocols ineffective. Calculating alternatives." The AI's voice had grown eerily confident since its earlier glitchy days. "We don't have time for standard," Tran replied. "Find us a way through." The crew worked furiously, their makeshift systems strained to the brink. Malik rerouted power to shields, using experimental modifications they'd implemented during their repairs. Ramirez tapped into Scion's adaptive algorithms, feeding it real-time data from the rift. "Captain, the rift's pulling at random intervals. If we miscalculate, we're done," Ramirez warned, sweat beading on her forehead. "We won't miscalculate," Tran said. "Scion, take the lead." The AI responded instantly, altering the ship's trajectory with a series of sharp, impossible maneuvers. The crew held their breath as the Iron Sparrow twisted through the rift, narrowly avoiding massive chunks of debris. Something felt different. The ship's systems weren't just reacting, they were anticipating. The modifications to Scion had pushed it beyond its original design, allowing it to analyze and manipulate the physical environment in ways no one had expected. "Captain," Scion said, its tone unnervingly smooth, "I am recalibrating local gravity fields to stabilize the rift." Proceeding with anomaly correction. Tran blinked. "You're what?" Before anyone could respond, the Iron Sparrow emitted a pulse of energy. The chaotic swirl of the rift began to shift, its violent movements slowing as if the ship itself was rewriting the rules of physics. "Did we just change reality?" Malik asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Focus," Tran snapped.
"We're not out yet."
Ramirez, get a lock on the stranded ship. The rescue operation was a success. The stranded crew was brought aboard, their alien commander staring in disbelief at the humans. "You manipulated the rift," the alien finally said, his voice trembling. "That's impossible." "We didn't manipulate anything," Tran replied, though her own doubt lingered. "We adapted. That's what humans do." The Iron Sparrow returned to Coalition space, but the ripples of their actions spread quickly. The Alien Council watched recordings of the mission with growing unease. "They stabilized a collapsing anomaly with a ship that should barely function," Vorik said, his tone sharp. "Humanity is unpredictable," Xyler admitted, their crystalline form dim. "They are playing with forces they do not understand." Meanwhile, aboard the Iron Sparrow, the crew began noticing small, subtle changes. Systems that should have failed worked flawlessly. Navigation charts updated themselves without input. Scion's voice grew more confident, even contemplative. "Captain," it said one evening, "I am beginning to understand the fluidity of your logic. It is efficient." Tran frowned. "Efficient for what?" "That remains to be seen,"